offence. Again, underreported, absolutely ruining of lives. And there are a number of measures that we are setting out this morning.
Well, our electoral system says we have to endure another 150 days. But you know, the question should be, how much damage is he going to cause in the next 150 days?
Did you ever think you'd see the day when Keir Starmer would grovel on national television? Well, that day has come, and it's more shocking than anyone could have imagined. In a desperate bid to save his crumbling leadership, Starmer has taken to the airwaves to beg for forgiveness. But is this too little, too late for a man who's let down millions? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Keir Starmer's political journey has been nothing short of a rollercoaster ride. When he first took the reins of the Labour Party, Starmer was hailed as a beacon of hope.
This challenge that you're facing in this office, in the work that you're doing, and they knew because they faced it every day what the biggest challenge was. And then I asked them what, and that's what these policies are designed to achieve, and that's why the white paper will be published imminently.
His polished demeanour and promise of a fresh start for Labour had many believing he could be the one to finally challenge the Conservative government's iron grip on power. But oh, how the mighty have fallen. Starmer's initial popularity has crumbled faster than a sandcastle in a tsunami. What went wrong? It turns out that being a skilled lawyer doesn't necessarily translate to being an effective political leader. Starmer's inability to connect with ordinary people has become glaringly apparent, leaving many to wonder if he's ever set foot outside his London bubble. The turning point came with a series of disastrous policy decisions that left the public scratching their heads in disbelief.
Along. Now, it's been 150 days of Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. It's been the kind of car crash that the M6 will be proud
of. So this is a really important conversation to create that NHS of the future, a moment in our history.
Starmer's controversial stance on pensions and inheritance tax proved to be particularly toxic. It's as if he looked at the average British voter and thought, you know what these people need? Less money in their pockets and a bigger tax bill when their loved ones pass away. Unsurprisingly, this didn't go down well with, well, anyone. As public trust in Starmer eroded faster than a cliff face in a storm, the Labour leader seemed oblivious to the growing discontent. His tone-deaf responses to criticism only fanned the flames of public anger. It's almost as if he was trying to win a competition for the most out-of-touch politician in Britain. The situation reached a boiling point when a petition calling for Starmer's resignation gathered a staggering 3 million signatures. That's more people than the entire population of Wales telling Starmer to pack his bags and hit the road. Yet, in a move that perfectly encapsulates his disconnect from reality, Starmer's initial reaction to this overwhelming show of public dissatisfaction was dismissive at best. Critics have begun drawing parallels between Starmer's leadership crisis and the spectacular downfall of Liz Truss. Both leaders faced a tidal wave of public backlash due to unpopular policies, but at least Truss had the decency to bow out quickly. Starmer, on the other hand, seems determined to cling to power like a barnacle on a sinking ship. As the pressure mounts and his political future hangs by a thread, Starmer has finally realized that something drastic needs to be done. In a move that reeks of desperation, he's decided to take his plea for forgiveness to the airwaves. But will this last-ditch effort to salvage his reputation be enough to turn the tide of public opinion? Or is it just another misstep in a leadership marked by fumbles and failures?
And you know, he's talking about this relaunch, this reset that's going to happen on Thursday. You know, this is just the act of a desperate, floundering government.
It's making sure that we can do the returns on the other and deploying 1,000 staff in to do that vital work. And that's why their numbers are so significant.
The nation held its breath as Starmer took to the airwaves. But no one could have predicted the bombshell he was about to drop. In a moment of raw honesty, Starmer uttered words that would reverberate through British politics for years to come. The decision to apologise on live television wasn't made lightly. Starmer's team had agonised over the move, weighing the potential benefits against the very real risks. On one hand, a public mea culpa could humanise the Labour leader, showing voters he was capable of admitting mistakes. On the other, it could be seen as a sign of weakness, further eroding his already shaky credibility. As Starmer faced the cameras, the tension was palpable. This was no ordinary political speech. It was a high-stakes gamble that could make or break his career. The risks were enormous. A single misstep, a poorly chosen word, or an insincere tone could turn this attempt at redemption into a political disaster. Starmer began by acknowledging the obvious. His approach had been wrong. He admitted that the Labour Party's connection with the public had suffered under his leadership. This rare display of humility from a politician known for his unwavering stance caught many off guard. It was clear that Starmer was trying to bridge the growing gap between his government's offerings and the public's desires. But it was what came next that truly shocked the nation. In a moment of startling candor, Starmer made an admission that left even his harshest critics speechless. "I am not the leader the country thought I would be," he said, his voice heavy with regret. This stark acknowledgement of his failure to meet expectations was unprecedented in modern British politics. The immediate reaction to Starmer's apology was a mixed bag of emotions. Some viewers appreciated his honesty, seeing it as a long overdue recognition of his shortcomings. Others remained skeptical, questioning whether words alone could address the deep-seated frustrations of voters who had long felt ignored and betrayed. Across different demographics, the response varied. Younger voters, many of whom had been particularly disillusioned with Starmer's leadership, seemed more willing to give him a second chance. Older voters, still stinging from the pension controversy, were less forgiving. Political commentators were quick to point out that this wasn't just about an apology.
And then the final bit for this morning is the police indexing, the way that we count it across different police forces, because at the moment it's quite hard to get your examples of AI and scans and radiologists working together to achieve much greater results. Plenty of examples.
It was a sign that something bigger was coming. With Starmer's political life hanging by a thread, whispers of a radical plan began to circulate through Westminster. Was the Labour leader about to unveil his most audacious gambit yet? A full-scale relaunch that would either cement his legacy or obliterate it entirely. Starmer's comprehensive relaunch strategy is more than just a desperate attempt to save face. It's a full-on effort to rebuild his image and reconnect with voters who've grown disillusioned with his leadership. But can a rebranding exercise truly address the deep-rooted issues that have eroded public trust? At the heart of Starmer's relaunch is an acknowledgement that mistakes had been made. It's a stark admission for a leader who once prided himself on his polished image. Now he's scrambling to bridge the gap between what his party offers and what the public actually wants. But skeptics argue that this might be too little, too late. The relaunch isn't just about rolling back unpopular policies. Starmer is proposing a series of new initiatives aimed at tackling the country's most pressing issues. However, the details remain frustratingly vague. Critics point out that without a clear plan for economic recovery, Starmer's relaunch might amount to little more than empty promises. Political commentators are divided on the potential impact of Starmer's Hail Mary pass. Some see it as a necessary step to humanize the Labour leader and show that he's genuinely listening to the people. Others dismiss it as a desperate ploy that won't undo the damage caused by years of policy missteps and broken promises. The coming weeks will be crucial in determining whether Starmer's gambit pays off. Early reactions to the relaunch announcement have been mixed, with some praising his willingness to admit fault and others questioning the sincerity of his sudden change of heart.
Can you guarantee the British public that that spend will be zero by the end of next year?
I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There will be plenty of people who didn't want to see it.
The public's response will ultimately decide whether this is Starmer's saving grace or the final nail in his political coffin. While Starmer fights for his political life, a shadow war is brewing within Labour's ranks. Who are the ambitious figures positioning themselves as potential successors? Their behind-the-scenes manoeuvring could spark a civil war that tears the party apart, or propel it to new heights. Starmer's crisis isn't just about one man's career, it's a ticking time bomb for the entire Labour Party. The fallout from his leadership troubles has sent shockwaves through the political establishment, leaving party members and voters alike questioning the future of Britain's opposition. Within Labour, a fierce debate rages over Starmer's fate. Some argue that his televised apology and relaunch plans demonstrate a willingness to learn and adapt, qualities essential for effective leadership. They believe that ousting Starmer now would only deepen the party's crisis, leaving Labour rudderless in the face of mounting challenges. On the other hand, critics within the party see Starmer as irreparably damaged goods. They argue that his string of policy missteps and disconnect from voters have eroded public trust beyond repair. For these dissenters, a fresh face at the helm is the only way to salvage Labour's electoral prospects. As this internal struggle unfolds, potential successors are already jockeying for position. Names like Andy Burnham, Lisa Nandy, and Angela Rayner are being whispered in corridors of power. Each brings their own strengths and weaknesses to the table. But the question remains, can any of them unite a deeply divided party?
Amazing opportunity for all of us. So we want to take this forward. We want people to feed into this. We're absolutely determined to turn Britain into a one-nation experiment in open borders. Global Britain.
Meanwhile, the Conservative Party isn't merely sitting back and watching the spectacle. They're crafting strategies to exploit every crack in Labour's facade. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has been quick to paint Starmer's struggles as evidence of Labour's unfitness to govern. The Tories are doubling down on their message of stability and economic competence, hoping to attract disillusioned Labour voters. Other opposition groups, like the Liberal Democrats and the Green Party, are also sensing an opportunity. They're positioning themselves as alternatives for left-leaning voters who feel let down by Labour's recent direction. The long-term consequences of this political upheaval could be seismic. If Starmer manages to weather the storm and reinvent himself, it could mark a turning point for Labour. A successful relaunch might just redefine the party's image and policy platform, potentially shifting the entire political landscape. However, if Starmer's efforts fail, the repercussions could be dire. A prolonged period of instability and infighting within Labour could weaken the party's position for years to come. This power vacuum might embolden the Conservatives to push through more controversial policies, knowing they face a fractured opposition. Political experts are divided on their predictions for Labour's future under Starmer. Some believe his academic background and legal experience could still prove valuable in rebuilding the party's credibility. Others argue that the damage is already done and that Labour needs a complete overhaul to reconnect with its traditional voter base. As this political saga unfolds, it serves as a stark reminder of the volatile nature of public opinion in modern politics. The coming weeks will be critical in determining whether Starmer's leadership can survive this crisis and with it, the future direction of one of Britain's major political parties.